table, it says, can you add those terms? So the sum of one number in this series would simply be a half or 0.5. Can you use your calculator or your brain? 1/2 plus a quarter. I want to believe that you can do this, right? Everyone's listening? That 1/2 plus a quarter is more than capable? Because you love money, right? What's 1/2 plus a quarter? Yeah, right? Like 3/4 altogether. Now it gets a little trickier. What's 3/4 plus an eighth? You're allowed to use your calculator. Or you can get common bases. But it's going to be more powerful as a decimal, what we're doing. 0.875. What am I going to add to 0.875? Go for it. And of course, this is a geometric series because the common ratio is a half, right? Every number is half of what it was before. What do we get? What? 9375. Now, the next one we're not given, so I need to know the next term. What's half of 1/16? So can you add 1/32 to this and go diamond enter? So 0.9375 plus 1/32, diamond enter. What decimal do you get? 0.96875. Now which one would you use? What's half of that? Add 1/64 to that. So 0.96875 plus 1/64. Now what do you get? 0.984375. Let's do the next one. It doesn't tell you. Add 1/28 to it. What answer do you get? Add 1/28 to that answer. What do you get? Did you get an answer? Write it down somewhere. What's half of that? 1/256. Add that one to it. Keep going. Go plus. What's half of this? Half of 500 and 1/512. Yes? I'm just going half, right? Next, keep going. What's 1/1024? Add to it. Keep going. Don't quit. What I want you to see is eventually the number on your calculator is not going to change. And that you can see it converges to an answer. As we go on and on and on and on and on. The next one after that is 2/2048. Add 1/2048. Is it converging to an answer? Where as you're adding, the answers aren't going to change. It stays the same in your calculator over and over again. The next one after that would be 1/4096. At what term are you noticing in your calculator as you're adding that it's staying the same number? It's not changing. If you don't see it yet, do the next one. The next one is 1/8192. Like at what point do you see that it's converging to an answer? You know what answer it converges to? 1, right? It's getting closer to 0.999999. And as you add and add, it's just going to get closer to 1, but it will never be greater than 1. No matter what, each number you try to add is just a little speck of dust, right? It becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And we say that this series is, what word did we say? Convergent. It converges to an answer. Even though there's an infinite number of terms, it still converges to a number. In this case, it converges to what number? 1. Okay, let's try this one on the right. What's the sum of the first term? 1/2. What's the sum of the next first two? 1 1/2. What's the next one? 3.5. Don't make it complicated. The next one. 7.5. We're not making this complicated. Yes? Simple. The next one. 5. Do we even have 5 yet? 1, 2, 3, 4. I do. What's the next one? 15.5. I need one more term. What am I doing? What's the common ratio here? 2. So the next number you don't see is? So add 16 and what do you get? 31 and this is called a divergent series. Is it converging to one answer? It's diverging. And if it goes forever, it's going to infinity. It's not going to an answer. What's the difference between the two? It's the common ratio, right? And we have to use the bars so we see the absolute value. What does that mean? Whatever the R is, you make it positive. And if the absolute value is less than 1, then the series is, what word do we use? So convergent or converges. And if the absolute value of R is bigger than 1, we say it is divergent. So the only way an infinite sum, and you'll see an infinity sign if it's sigma notation, or it'll just go dot, 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 which means forever. We have to look at the common ratio. So the good news is, the formula we use, do you see this little infinity sign I can use? So the sum of an infinite number, right? The added up is actually a very simple formula. It's A1 over R minus 1. Do you see how it's very similar to the longer, complicated one? But we're taking away the parentheses part. So in the numerator, you know what's in the parentheses in the numerator? Take that away, and what are you left with? A1 over, oh, not R minus 1? Huh? Let's make this right. 1 minus R. Thank you. That's only if the absolute value of R is less than 1. All right, determine if the series is convergent or divergent. How do I do that? And if it's convergent, find its sum. So, can you tell me what the common ratio is here for number 13? How do I do that? I take any two consecutive numbers and what do I do with it? Find the quotient. Is the absolute value of that bigger than 1? What's the absolute value of negative 6?
6.
Is that bigger than 1? Do we use the word divergent or convergent when the common ratio is bigger than 1? So this one does what? Diverges. Is there a sum? Or you can say infinity. But we're going to write down no sum to find. So step 1 is to find the ratio. So again, how do I find the common ratio? Any two consecutive numbers. So, you know which one I'm going to pick? 8 over 24. I'm allowed to do that, right? 8 over 24 is a fancy way of just saying what number? Is the absolute value of 1/3, which is 1/3, is that less than 1? Is this diverge or converge? So this one is convergent. Does that mean there's an answer here? Yes. So how do I find the sum? An infinite sum, right there, or the infinite number of terms. What formula then do I use to find what number it converges to? A1 is, and in the denominator you go 1 minus 1/3. That's it. Use your calculator. It's over. That little formula tells you what it converges to. If you got the answer 24, you typed it incorrectly. If you didn't, then you didn't type it incorrectly. 24. Right? No. Definitely not. Why would the answer not be 24? We already started with 72. I was looking at a bad answer key. So, let's do it right then. If I was typing this in, it would be 72 divided by parentheses, 1 subtract parentheses, 1/3, close it twice. Did you type it in? And then the answer is right there. That's the correct answer, which is 108. Look off an answer key. Do you know that sometimes answer keys are wrong? Did you ever know that? So it's 100 and. Why could the answer not be 24? What number did we start with? Can't go 72 plus 24 and think the end answer is going to be obviously bigger than the first number, yes? Okay, number 15. The step one is, can you find the common ratio? So, any two consecutive numbers. I'm going to pick negative 45 over 90. What is it? That's negative what? Did we find, is it converging or diverging? Do you now know? Negative a half. What do we know? It's convergent, right? And what's the formula to add an infinite number of terms? And the formula simply is A1, which is negative 180, and then 1 subtract negative a half. Type that in. Let me just double check with my calculator. So negative 180 divided by 1 subtract negative a half. I get negative 120. And do you know why it changed? Because we go negative, positive, that's why that number is there. Number 16. Can you find the infinite sum? Infinite number of terms. Is it convergent? So take any two consecutive numbers. So if I want to go 5 over 4 divided by 1, guess what that answer is? 5 over 4 divided by 1. 5 over 4. Hey, are you a good thinker? Is 5 over 4 bigger than 1 or smaller than 1? So there is no sum. Excellent. Let's try sigma notation. Can you define from 1 to infinity, what's the sum? How would I know what the R is just by looking at the rule? What do I look at? The base. What number is the base? That means it is convergent. So then what do I need? Well, I need to know A1. So what do I do to find A1? Plug in what number? Now 1 take away 1 is 0, and anything to the exponent 0 is 1. So the first term is 224. And now what's the formula for an infinite number of terms? Which is 224. What goes in the denominator? 1 subtract 3/4. Use your calculator. Let's see, my answer key's right here. My answer key says 896. Hey, let's do something a little different. Out of 18, 19, and 20, one of those is divergent. Do you know which one? 18, 19, or 20. One of them is divergent. Which one? That's right. The base, the absolute value of the base is bigger than 1, so that means there is no sum. All right, let's do 18, and then I'm going to let you practice everything we did yesterday and today. Here we go. 18. Can you find that sum of an infinite number of terms? So this one is convergent, and R equals what number? Negative 0.2. So if I want to find that infinite number of terms, the formula is A1. So what number do I plug in? 1. And what answer do you get? That's the numerator. And then the denominator is 1 subtract negative 0.2. So be careful of your signs. Type it in correctly. Think how you're typing with parentheses. And then see what's the answer here. I got 37.5. Are we on track? Excellent. All right, there's your lesson on infinite geometric series. GMath over.